What matters more when it comes to PvP online games? Competitive players or casual players? Did streamers ruin gaming? Did tryhards ruin gaming? These are questions that don't ever seem to have a correct answer amongst fans of PvP games. So that's why in this video, I will not be giving a definitive answer for that. But what I am going to look to do in this video is give my opinion on the topic. And to do this, I'm going to be mainly using Marvel Rivals and a bit of Fortnite, as these are the only two games that I've really played in the past, 6 or 7 years from a competitive standpoint, and they also happen to be two of the biggest, PvP multiplayer games in that time span. And Fortnite more specifically is a game where I've seen many people look to criticize when it comes to a bigger surge of people like wanting to be really good at PvP games because of things like streaming and, money you could make just off being good at the game. But if you haven't played either game, that's still fine, as the points made in this video will still apply if you play, Call of Duty, Overwatch, I don't know, Madden 2K. This video will still, pretty much apply to every PvP game at least a conceptual level. But before I get into talking about this, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video. One of the biggest Marvel mobile games is now available on PC, Marvel Contest of Champions. If you've never heard of this, it's a free-to-play fighting game developed by Kabam. The game blends the best of both worlds, fast-paced fighting mechanics with deep RPG progression. You can build your ultimate team of iconic Marvel superheroes and villains with a roster of over 300 champions to choose from, where you can also upgrade these champions and master strategic combat. Whether you're a casual brawler or a hardcore strategist, there's a playstyle for everyone. With the game coming to PC, it runs at 60 FPS with upgraded character textures and enhanced visual settings to take control over. And speaking of control, you can now use a mouse and keyboard, a fight stick, or a controller to play the game. The game also offers tie-in events with current Marvel movies, shows, and comic runs, and with the upcoming Fantastic Four movie coming in July, it's the perfect time to dive in. The game features all 4 core members and plenty of classic villains so that fans can experience their story now in the game. Marvel Contest of Champions is coming to Steam very soon, so head over to Steam and hit that wishlist button so you can enjoy some amazing rewards. And big shout out to Kabam for sponsoring this video. And now, let's get back to the topic of the video. Let me start this off by asking you all a question. How often have you heard something along the lines of, Fortnite used to be fun, but now when you shoot at someone, they build a 5-star hotel with foot rubs, an indoor steakhouse, and Wi-Fi. This guy is trying too hard, he needs to take a shower. This thing needs to be nerfed because it's broken. This thing is bad and needs to be buffed. I'm willing to bet that you've probably heard most of what I just said, if not all of it. But two of these, complaints are from a subjective standpoint that have to do with, more so emotion, and the other two are more objective statements that can be analyzed to see whether or not there is actually something wrong. Although, I suppose you could analyze whether or not someone needs to take a shower. But the point of me saying this is that this is the root of the disconnect between competitive players and casual ones. The most common argument I see people make when it comes to this topic is casual players are most of the player base, so it only makes sense that they take priority in the game developers, heads when they're designing the game, improving it, updating it, etc. Now, on the surface, this argument sounds like it makes sense, especially from a business standpoint. It does from a business standpoint. But the problem with this argument is that it comes from people, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, that don't actually want the best for the game when it comes to its quality. And when I say quality, I'm mostly talking about, the balance of a game, because that is kind of what makes a good PvP game. Gameplay is obviously a very important thing, but if you have poorly balanced gameplay, then it's not fun. And the reason I say that casuals don't want the best for the game is because casual players of PvP games don't actually know what they are talking about a lot of the time when it comes to balancing a game and, when they're complaining about things in it. The average casual player of a game is only concerned about, what they find fun, even if the thing they find fun is ultimately a detriment to the balance of the game. For a great example of this, I'm going to use Fortnite, and I actually talked about this in a video I made about Fortnite a couple months ago, so I'm going to play a clip from that. And I don't mind games having metas. I think the problem that happened with a lot of later Fortnite seasons after Chapter 1, the problem is when a specific tactic or item is so broken that it gives you such a big advantage over players that don't have it. I don't mind the loot pool, like, a gold scar is obviously better than a green AR, but you can still compete against a gold scar with a green AR. It's not like you were automatically gonna lose that fight. Now, stemming from that example, I think you can kind of understand what I mean and how this can stem into every game. I mean, using Fortnite again as an example, people love stuff like, the Marvel and anime collab mythic weapons, or just mythic weapons in general, and while the casual player will find that stuff fun and amusing, from a competitive standpoint, it breaks the game's balance, therefore resulting in a worse game from a design standpoint. And for another example, I'm going to use Marvel Rivals. How many times have you heard someone say, oh, Black Panther is broken, Spider-Man is broken, etc.? But then you look at, like, tier lists from, the top players, like, around the game, like, multiple tier lists, and these characters are just always on the lower side. It's because in reality, these characters aren't that good when you get to higher levels of play. But people who don't have, that much time to play the game, or are new to a specific genre, or they just might not play many PvP games at all, really, they might play against someone who's really good with these kinds of characters. And now little Timmy is just getting put in the white van by Spider-Man and Black Panther. And that's simply because there's people who have a deeper understanding of these games and know what to do in order to be good at said game. Like, could you imagine for a second a casual basketball fan telling an NBA player or someone really into basketball that you should be able to travel just because you can't dribble as well as other people? Like, do we see how dumb this sounds? And the annoying thing about this to competitive players is that when game developers are catering to casual players when it comes to making, balance adjustments, it can often make the game's quality go down, like I said earlier, but at the same time, it might not even make the casual players happy. And this is for another big reason that I also covered when I made that Fortnite video a couple months ago. The counter to this problem that Epic tried was zero build mode, but I think in adding that mode, they fucked up the game even more for casuals that still liked build mode, and even pros that like build mode. I 100% believe, and there's no convincing me otherwise, that the reason Epic changed the movement system in this game as much as they did was to cater to zero build, because the previous movement system was not made for zero build. I mean, even trying to play the OG map zero build, it's just blatantly obvious that that map is not made for zero build. It's just not, because the game was never supposed to have zero build. They only added it in to cater to people who weren't good at building. But the problem with like adding all these new mechanics and stuff is that it makes the game stray away from the simplicity that it had and what made it so good in those earlier seasons. So now playing build mode with all of these new movement mechanics makes it even more complicated to get good at the game, and it still doesn't matter if a casual has zero build to fall on, because no matter what game mode a casual plays, a good player will still always have a way better chance at performing better than a casual one, builds or no builds. And again, things like bullet drop, perks, attachments, broken weapons, NPCs, and all the other extra bullshit that they add, it just makes the game less simple and less balanced. And this now leads me into another point in this topic. And the biggest and worst culprit of these solutions that they have tried has been skill-based matchmaking. There is not a single game in the history of games that I have heard of or that I have played that has gotten skill-based matchmaking right. You see, the player base of PvP games, just like certain people who play them, are on the spectrum. Wait, no, sorry. On a spectrum.
Doctor said I could be on the spectrum.
I don't know what that is, but get off it pronto.
You have the super casual players, you have the regular casual players, you have the semi-competitive players, you have the competitive players, and then you have, the pros. And skill-based matchmaking doesn't seem to understand this because, as so many people have complained about, once you do good in even, one or just a couple of matches, the game thinks you went from Rico to Skipper, and instead of playing against the other 9th graders on the basketball court, now you're put into lobbies where D-Wade is throwing lobs for LeBron to put his nuts in your face. And this isn't just bad for casual players who aren't very good at the game, but this also punishes people who are semi-competitive players or even competitive ones who are good to great at the game, but they get punished because now they are forced to try hard every game. And believe it or not, even people who are competitive at said game don't want to try hard every game. Like, some people just want to relax. I mean, it gets so bad to a point where, like, games like Fortnite have basically ruined their public matches for anyone with a brain cell, and it even happens in their ranked mode too, because their lobbies are now filled with not real players. Like, they're actual just bots, AI robots. Like, if you're so bad at the game that you need to kill literal robots to feel good, then you're probably 5 years old, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I personally think games should just stop trying skill-based matchmaking. Leave public lobbies the way they used to be, where anybody could get into a game with anybody. And, if you wanted more of a challenge, you want to play with people around your skill level all the time, then okay, go play ranked. And I'm not saying, games with ranked systems have figured out that system perfectly, because if you've played any game with a ranked system, there's certain people that might be in the same rank as you and they don't deserve to be there, but that's besides the point. It's at least better than skill-based matchmaking. I mean, I played Black Ops 2, like when I was like 8 years old, mind you, and you didn't see me complaining if I got shit on because someone who happens to be really good at the game got in my lobby, or someone who happened to be better than me got in my lobby. But shit, then again, I see grown adults out there whining because they can't counter a Spider-Man in Marvel Rivals. But now, this leads me to my next point. Oftentimes I hear casual players say something along the lines of, games are about fun, tryhards are ruining this. And while people trying to be the best can ruin a certain element of fun within the game for other people. There's a couple problems with this kind of statement. One, some people find it fun to try and be the best. Two, the very concept of PvP, player versus player, is inherently competitive. I'm gonna use basketball again as an example. People play sports for fun, but that doesn't mean basketball needs to be changed just because you got shit on. They shouldn't change the rules of basketball so that you can now travel just because you can't dribble. And the third problem with this is even really good players don't want to be playing at their best in a game every game. Like, for example, in Marvel Rivals, or any game, again, for example, people make Smurf accounts. And I find, at least, you know, speaking for myself, I can't speak for everybody, but I also have, like, I see why a lot of people do this. People make Smurf accounts in games to try new things out, or just to play in an environment where they don't have to try their dick off. And I think that final point is the root of where a lot of casual players, you know, frustration comes from. The fact that they feel like they have to try their absolute hardest sometimes to win, and even then they still lose. And for some people, this isn't enjoyable or fun, and that's understandable, right? But there does reach a point where you do just need to get good at a game, or get better at a game. Like, imagine, and I'm gonna use a single player game for example, imagine if From Software one of these days just folded and made their games like way easier, just because some 10-year-old kid can't beat Elden Ring. Like, there's a point where sometimes people need to realize that sometimes a specific game or a specific genre of game is just not for them. And this doesn't mean that gaming was ever ruined because people want to be the best or really good at a game. And while there's certainly more people that want to be good at games now than there were, you know, years ago, due to factors like streaming and or the amount of money you can make from being good at a game, we can't forget that in a lot of older PvP, people were still very competitive. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be really good at, you know, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty, and even Minecraft. So it's not like this is some new phenomenon that's occurring in the past 6 to 8 years. It may have been something that became more prevalent, but that doesn't mean that things have really changed all that much. I guess for my final statement that I'll say is, listen, I get it, you know? Playing games is supposed to be a stress-free environment, and that's been taken away in a lot of areas depending on what games you play, right? And it can be taken away for a number of reasons, and I get, like, one of the reasons being, you know, casual players not wanting to get steamrolled every game, right? Or any player just not wanting to try their absolute hardest all the time when they hop on a PvP game. But again, what you have to understand is that these games are inherently competitive. So my final question would be, why do you even play these games if you're mad that someone's tryharding in them? But with all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and yeah.